Do we have a crisis in British democracy? I think most people now would say that yes, we do. I'm going to make a series of videos on this YouTube channel explaining why I think how we got where we are. It might not be for the reasons that you think. That might be part of the crisis. I'm not labelling anybody, and I don't do that. But let's just talk about where we are. So we've got a group of people who work in this building, and it's their job to make the laws. And basically, the people who live in these buildings, and these buildings, and these buildings, all those people, they have this relationship with that building there on the right. Now, the idea is we select the people who work in there, and they make the laws that we live by. So yeah, that's how British democracy is meant to work. I'm no constitutional expert, but that's a brief summary of where things are. And then there's another player, the media. Show a picture of radio there as well, but we've got the internet, the printed press, television and radio. And I can't see them, maybe growing up I thought that they were meant to be the oil in the works. They were the ones that meant to sort of take the views of the people to the Parliament when people in Parliament weren't meeting directly, and reported on what was going on in Parliament back to the people. So that should be a nice little cycle, and that's how I always thought things would work growing up. I'm an adult now, I guess. This lady here, we all know, the current Prime Minister, she thinks that one particular course of action, which some people propose, that we have another referendum on where we are, our relationship with the European Union. She says that doing that will be a catastrophic breach of trust in our democracy. And my answer to Theresa May is, no, Mrs. May, trust in our democracy was breached some time ago. It's already happened. So let's not worry about it getting worse. So back to the current crisis. I think the crisis goes back further than the current situation we have at the moment. I think it goes back to the lack of education in our schools of how we are governed, and I think that is a serious concern. I think that many people, from adults, current children, students at school, right up to adults, don't really understand the mechanism of how we are governed, and don't really know how they can interact with it. This causes frustration, this causes bitterness, this causes confusion when people don't get exactly what they want. So I'm not going to go much more about it. I don't want to go into the details exactly this week at the moment. I think going back, so many people are disillusioned and many people are forgotten. They feel forgotten. And however, I mean, of course, how can I go away without mentioning it? The current referendum crisis, how you voted in that referendum 2.5 years ago. People on both sides, this applies to, they feel disillusioned, they're forgotten, and they don't really understand why what they've said in various votes and various discussions isn't happening the way they thought it was going to. I do not believe that this crisis with our democracy is going to be solved whether we do or whether we don't leave the European Union. It predates that. People on my side of the argument, or people on the other side of the argument, Brexit, might think that their solution to this crisis, of that particular part of the crisis, is going to solve this crisis. It's not. It goes deeper than that. So I came up with this idea a few years ago now, but I've been sitting on it, of an organisation which at the moment isn't an organisation, it's just me on this YouTube channel and anyone else who I can get interested. For an organisation with a tentative title of Engage, I'm not entirely certain Engage hasn't already been taken, but I'm going to Engage for now, and that's the name of this YouTube channel. So if you want to keep watching the videos as I make more videos about current situation in politics, please do subscribe to this channel. Why now? That's a very good question, because I've been sitting on this idea for a while. One thing that stops me having this idea is this feeling that I've got that the ideas I'm going to present are somehow terribly naive. I'll talk a bit more about myself on a slide later called Personal Disclosure. That's actually what my environment, I'm not an MP, I'm not an elected councillor, what my position is in politics and how I've related it up till now. I feel that I don't know if those of you about my age, a work of fiction called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reigns supreme in your take on the world. And there's a bit at the beginning of one of the books, early books, where Douglas Adams talks about a girl in a cafe in Rickmansworth who suddenly decides that the world would be great if people were nice to each other. I feel a bit like that in making these videos, and that's one of the reasons that stopped me. That's the thing that it's all terribly naive. I've tried to write into a few notable people and got a very nice reply from Professor Grayling. But this is like my approach, having written those letters. So why now? Because, well, why not? 2 or 3 years ago, probably, or 6 years ago. I probably had this idea 10 years ago, first of all, when we were in the middle of a big expensive scandal. And I think politics has got steadily worse in this country since then. So it's not so much why now, why didn't I do it before? There are 3 undeniable truths, I think, about politics in this country, and they are these. However interested, bored or cynical you are about politics, somewhere, there will be people taking decisions that will affect you. I don't think you can argue with that statement. Decisions are taken all the time on a daily basis at lots of different levels. And I suppose one of the current debate is where they should be taken. But I don't think it really, it does matter where they're taken, but it matters more that you understand where they're taken and how you can get involved in that. So a lot of people say politicians are all the same. I'll come on to that point in a moment. I'll come on to it now. People don't become bad people just because they get involved in politics. There's a great book I recommend by the very well-known journalist Jeremy Paxman, all about politicians, and he's worked with politicians all his life, and he is notably cynical about many of them. But it was a good book, a good read, and a bit of a counter-argument to some of the things I say. Yes, certain sorts of people get drawn into politics, people who like the sound of their own voice, people who like the idea of making decisions about people, but they don't become bad people. A lot of them are generally driven, but they want to be public servants. And some people get drawn into politics were bad people, however you want to define bad, before they got into politics. And some of them are good people, and they're good people still. I've got some photos of some people in the moment, and you will have an opinion about each and every one of them. But I don't think they're bad people because they're in politics. Politicians are not all the same. And if I've got one central belief is that politicians are not all the same. And when we start saying that, oh, politicians, they're all the same, we start losing control over what we can control. Come on to that point again a bit later. The third point is that politicians are going to know more about politics than you do, unless you are a politician or a keen student of politics. There was a few weeks ago, I recorded this video a few weeks ago and never got it loaded up. And I'm hoping this is the definitive version today. Andrea Leadsom, who's a politician, she's an important job in the government. She said that on some public forum that the problem with politicians is they assume they know more than the general public. I read a brilliant answer to that just this last week from the comedian, whose name will come back to me in a minute because I want to reference him. he said, this comedian said, put it around here somewhere, he said that it's not fair to say that politicians think they're somehow better than everybody else, because it's not, nobody is saying that Mitch Benn, just going back to me, as he appears a lot on Radio 4, politicians are not better than everybody, and no one's saying that. The affairs of state, how we run the country, are not too complicated for the man and the woman in the street. They're too complicated for everybody, unless you spend time, or as he said it, in your spare time. They're too complicated to understand in your spare time. So that's why we pay politicians to know more about politics. It's their daily job, just like if your job is a plumber or a teacher, you know more about plumbing or teaching than other people. I know that teachers probably smile at that because a lot of their parents might think that they know more about it than the teachers. But teachers know more about teaching, and plumbers know more about plumbing, and all goes on through every single job. Doctors know more about medicine. And politicians do know more about politics, not because they're better people, but because they spend more time with it. So there we go. So for now, this channel is going to be me doing some YouTube and vlogs. And if I get a few more subscribers, and they seem to be people who know what they're talking about, I may well ask them to contribute. The initial idea, before I started doing this as a YouTube channel, was to have a big campaigning organisation. And so now I'd just like to talk about what I think that this organisation, tentatively called Engage, would actually campaign on. So first of all, campaign on getting into schools and colleges and community groups. I don't want to just leave generations always left school away. So community centres and workplaces, and just build an understanding of debating skills, how to make your case to an MP, how to effectively get politicians working for people, so that the frustration that you feel that politicians aren't working for you can be mitigated in some way. Not claiming it can be completely got rid of, but mitigated in some way. The idea of Engage is to try and work from both directions. I'm trying to get the people more engaged with the politics and the politicians more engaged with the people. And in saying that, I'm not saying that a lot of that doesn't already go on, but I think not enough to make our politics as healthy as it should be. And, the media is meant to do that, but with the best will in the world, most media outlets are really in the business of sales. Newspapers are into selling newspapers. Radio, well, the BBC, I'll leave that aside for one day. I'm not quite sure what the BBC does at the moment. I'm a big fan of the BBC. Independent radio is in selling adverts, what they have on there. They're sales outlets, really. And your typical right-wing tabloid like Daily Mail, Daily Express is most interested in selling newspapers, so they really want to say what they really should want to hear. If a right-wing tabloid started printing pro-Labour stories, their sales would go down. So it's very difficult. I don't quite see how the printed media and a lot of the online media is going to perform the role of bringing people together, when I think they're primarily there as sales outlets. Anyway, that's a bit of cynicism from me, but I think they still do a good job, but within limitations. So something else that Engage can do is organise public meetings between politicians and the public. Now, a lot of schools, a lot of churches in particular, and community groups always do this. You do have town hall style meetings, particularly elections, but between elections too. There's a lot of this goes on, so it's a case of working with people who already do it, so that people can talk to politicians can talk to people, and not necessarily on something like BBC Question Time, which is obviously there for the whole world to see. So there's a fair amount of grandstanding goes on there. In a more private situation, like we've got pictured there, maybe not quite so much grandstanding goes on. Just a theory. Also, there's also organisations like Full Fact and Channel 4 News and Fact Check who check information. One of the big bugbears I have about the way politics is talked about today is it's talked about like it's all about how people feel, not about what the facts are. And I have a big difficulty with that. Yes, how people feel is vitally important, but if your feelings are not based on things which are true, then it doesn't provide a great basis for making government decisions. We'll talk about more of that at another time. So yeah, work with organisations that do check facts. So we can actually tell when politicians are speaking the truth and when they're having you on. Generally building an understanding in the electorate about what politicians can do and what they can't do. I mean, you can get very annoyed with your local councillor if he doesn't fix the army. That's a strange example, but the army's not his job. Your local councillor can't fix the Brexit dispute because that's not his job or her job. And just say, I think a lot of the current problems is people blaming the EU and your MEPs for things that your national government are meant to be fixing. So it's really a case of trying to get people, us, everybody, me, you, everybody, to understand which politician can do what. So when the trains go wrong, you're not blaming your MEP. When something goes wrong in Europe, you're not blaming your local councillor, and so on. So that's the level of engagement is based on what people actually do. So this is a central, if you like, mission statement to Engage. Create a political discourse where honest politicians can thrive, but dishonest politicians are found out, and so build an active, participatory and mature democracy. I'm all for active democracy where people take part, but I think it's got it based on knowledge, as well as feelings. I said I'd give you a few pictures of politicians. There are pictures of a few politicians, and some of these politicians you may love and some of them you may despise. There's 2 or 3 on there that I have a great deal of respect for. They're not all in my party. So there they are, but then they're mostly good people, that's what I'm trying to say. There's one of them I'm not so sure about, but mostly they're good people. Right. So, in summary, what Engage can do is, or could do, if it existed, get into classrooms and communities, help with education, set up public meetings, support organisations that check facts, build an understanding between the governed and the governing, which works both ways, and develop an environment where the good politicians thrive and the bad politicians are found out, and create an informed democracy. I'm a big believer in democracy. People who are on the other side of the Brexit debate like to say that the other side don't really support democracy, whatever, and vice versa, but it's informed democracy that we need, not just democracy. Democracy is not just having one vote and telling people to get on with it and expecting it to happen. It's being informed about what's going on as well, both before and after the vote. So if your main problem with Brexit is it hasn't been done yet, try and understand why it hasn't been done yet. But there are reasons. It's not just failure. It's not people failing. It's just not people going back on their word. There are reasons. Okay. Personal disclosure screen. This is when I talk about myself, just briefly. Yes, I have been interested in politics since I was a kid. I've never been, well, that's not true. I was elected to office as a student union committee member once. I am a member of the Liberal Democrats, and that is where my politics comes from. Now, I say that not because this is a promotion, this channel is going to be a promotion of the Liberal Democrats. I could do with some of those. They could do with promoting sometimes. I have stood for Leeds City Council, as I live in Leeds, a couple of times under that party's banner. I've not been elected. But the main reason for saying that is so that you can, in watching these videos, if you think I'm getting a bit biased, you'll know it. I don't believe in hiding one's politics, because then it's like I might be putting forward the truth on what my truth is, and it might not be your truth, and you might want to measure mine against yours based on what my politics are. So that's why I say that. The idea of Engage is it's not restricted to any party, any view on Brexit, any view on anything. If you think that people and politicians should be communicating better than they are, then I'd like you to be involved in watching this channel, putting comments, whatever. Generally speaking, I've just started this YouTube channel. Any comment underneath I don't agree with is fine. Any comment which is abusive, either to me or anybody else making comments, is not fine, and I will remove them. Okay? So what next? It's going to be slowly. It's going to be making videos and putting them on this channel. And then we get a few subscribers and a few people making comments. I might ask them to contribute a video too. There we go. I think I already said that. And I'm going to make videos on my next video. I already made this video once. I'm going to remake it on 3 terms which I think are generally misunderstood. And then I'm going to make one on Brexit, because it's the whole topic of the day. So there we go. That is the end of video 1. Thank you very much for watching it, and stay tuned for video 2. I probably won't be spreading the videos around. There'll probably be 2 or 3 videos on at least before you found it, because I'm not going to just post one video and leave it. Okay.